Hey folks, this is just a little video to kind of give you a tour of what an actual Class Connect looks like, how it works, all that fun stuff. Um, Now, normally if this were an actual Class Connect, there would be students in and all that stuff, but I just wanted to give you kind of an overview of what it looks like and what you can expect in order to be able to do Class Connect properly. So, first things first, if you look off on the left-hand side here, you've got your audio video bar right here. Now, if I were to click the video button, which I will not do because I do not look very lovely right now, but if I were to click the video button, that would automatically transmit my video, and that way all of my students could see me during classes. Now, a lot of people don't like to use this. I actually use it every class because I find that my students really enjoy just being able to see my face, and a lot of times they ask if they can use their videos as well, which I generally don't let them do, but it's just kind of a fun way to be able to connect a little bit better with your students. Now, the one thing you do have to do is in order for the microphone to work, you have to press that talk button. And when you press the talk button, you can tell that it's working because you've got the little blue microphone next to your name right here. So you always want to make sure that that blue microphone is showing up, otherwise your students cannot hear what you are saying. Now, right below that is the participants list. If there were anyone else in this Class Connect, their name would show up underneath here. And right here you've got, well, we'll start here. Right here we've got a couple of different icons. This guy right here is just for emoticons. If I click on the smiley face shows up right underneath my name. And your students can use those to express emotion during Class Connects. If for any reason your students need to step away or you need to step away from the computer, press on this little guy right here and you can see it puts a little away button or away sign next to your name. So if your students are walking away from the computer or they're not there, you're going to see that away button selected. The next button right next to it is the raise your hand button. When you click on that, your hand gets raised. And if a student raises his or her hand, I should say, their name automatically pops to the top of the list in the order that their hands were raised. So if you ask a question and you're looking to call on people, and you want to, ask the first person that raises their hand, the nice thing is that it will show you exactly who clicked their button first. All right, next to the raise your hand, you've got the polling link. Now, it is automatically always set to just yes or no. When you click on yes, it will put either a green check for yes and a red X for no next to your name. So if you ask a yes or no question, you can get a good feel for what all of your students are thinking. You can also change that option so that it changes to A, B, C, D, and whatnot. And to change it to A, B, C, D, you would go up to Tools, and you would go to Polling. Oops, sorry. And then in polling, you would say polling type, yes or no options, A through C, multiple choice, A through D, or A through E, multiple choice. You can also respond to a poll there. You can publish the responses to the whiteboard, and let me show you what happens with that. So for example, I'm the only one in here. I click yes, and then I publish the responses to the whiteboard. Then it shows up that 100% of the people in this class selected yes, and 0% selected no. So it's kind of neat to just see where everybody is polling wise. You can also set it so that you can lock responses. Right now it's clicked to make responses visible, and what that means is that all of the students in the class can see what everybody else is saying. So if you want to do an anonymous poll, you're going to want to make sure you unselect that as well. So right underneath there, still in the participants box, we've got what we call the permissions. And these permissions are basically what your students are allowed to do within the Class Connect. If you click on the if you unselect the microphone, that means that they have the ability to use their own mics. Now, I love using that because I'm a language teacher, but some teachers don't enjoy using it as much. If you are going to use it simultaneously during Class Connects, you're going to want to make sure that you set up your audio properly. So to do that, you go to Tools, and then you go to Audio, and you're going to want to go to Max Simultaneous Talkers, which is basically the number of people that are allowed to use the microphone at the same time. So for example, right now it's set to 1, so if my microphone were on, none of my students would be able to use their microphones. So I always set it to 6, and that way up to 6 people can be using the microphone at the same time. The button right next to it is the webcam, which allows your students to be able to use their webcam. I teach a lot of middle schoolers, so I generally don't give that option to my students, but for example, if you were doing some sort of an oral presentation that your students had to do, they could use their video to be able to do that oral presentation. Right next to it is the chat permissions, and that gives students to use the chat box down here and type messages that everyone can see. Unless you check that, all messages will show up to you as a private chat, which can be very, very tricky, so you definitely want to give them that chat option, but you do have the option of turning it off if you need your students to pay attention. Right next to it is the whiteboard tools. When you unselect that, that gives your students this toolbar right here. Now, because I'm the moderator, I have that toolbar at all times. But if I were not the moderator, with that button unchecked, that allows my students to have all of these tools. And there are a lot of kind of fun things. You've got just the pointer tool, which allows you to pick up objects on the screen. These are all different little pointers that you can use on the screen to point to things. Note that they only show up until you point to something else. Right next to it, you've got the 2 writing tools where students can actually write on the board. I actually hate this tool because I think it's really hard to write clean on the board. So I try and get my students not to use it, but they really love it. And then you've got the highlighter tool, so you can highlight things on the board if you want to try and get students to pay attention to different things. Right underneath that, you've got the different text boxes. So this creates a text box that you can then type in. Maybe, if it will let me today. Apparently it doesn't want to let me. There we go. And that text box you can make bigger or smaller. Or you've just got the plain simple typing text. There are benefits to either, but you can kind of fiddle around with it and decide which one you want. Underneath that, you've got the shape creator, so you can create a black box. This is kind of nice if you are trying to show, different, if you're trying not to show different objects as you're going through your class, you want to hide things until you get there. You can do that and use that as kind of like a guard. And you have the option to do either a square or a circle. Underneath that, you've got the rectangle. You can again make shapes that are not filled in. Then we've got the line maker, very exciting. The button underneath here actually takes a screen capture and puts it on the page, which is kind of nice if you're trying to show students things in a step-by-step manner. Also, if students want to be able to pull things from the internet and put it on the whiteboard if they're doing some sort of a project, that's good. And then underneath here we've got clip art, which allows you to add all sorts of different types of clip art. So you can create backgrounds. If you wanted to load in a kind of do a PowerPoint but have the PowerPoint within the whiteboard, you can do that. To delete anything that you put on the board, all you have to do is select it and then just press delete on your keyboard and it will go away. So that's always good to know. And of course this graph is really useful for you math teachers as well. So that is the writing tools for the whiteboard. The button right next to it, the 2 squares overlapping, is what we call application sharing, and that allows students to be able to share applications that they are using. I rarely give students that ability, but it just kind of depends on the situation and the students. And the button right next to it is web tour permissions, which allows students to be able to open up a web browser that everyone can see and go surf the internet. Then down underneath here, you've got the chat box. Students can type in messages and it will show up for everyone to see. So most of your conversations with students will show up there. If we go up here, you can see we've got a lot of buttons up here. We can delete entire whiteboard pages. So say we're just messing around or things just get too out of control with your class, you can delete the page. Or you can clear the page, which will keep the background but takes that off all the work. And you can create a new page if you want to do something else. To toggle between pages, you'll go over here. Now, if you were to load content, which means, to try and load a PowerPoint, you would click on the load content button and then load your PowerPoint there. Here's the record button. You always want to record your sessions, so that is important as well. The eye right there starts a timer if you want to set a timer for your students. So for the whiteboard, this little button right here with the pencil on it, that's going to keep your whiteboard, and that means that that's what's visible to students. Right next to it is what we call the application sharing button, and when you click on that, this opens up, and you have the option to either share your entire desktop or share certain programs that you're using. It's confused right now because I'm using two programs at the same time. So if you were to click share your entire desktop, that means that your students will see everything that you see on the board. Or you can choose, for example, if you are showing them a website, or if you want to run a PowerPoint from your computer, you can share just the PowerPoint application, and that way they'll just see the PowerPoint. So that's a really useful tool as well. If you were to surf the internet and you want to kind of have them see what you're seeing while you're seeing it, click on this button right here, and then you would type in the website that you want to get to and press enter. And then your students in their screen will see what you see on the screen as well, and it's a nice way for them to be able to surf the internet with you, or at least see what you're seeing while you're seeing it. There's a lot of other tools here where this is just kind of the basics. Creating breakout rooms, or basically if you want your students to do group work, is really important, and you would do that through the tools button. So you click on tools. Well, maybe if my computer responds properly. Give us a minute here. Okay, so to create breakout rooms, you go up to tools, then you go to breakout rooms, and then select create breakout rooms. And then you can decide how many rooms you want. You can either do 4 rooms, or you can divide into groups of 4, or however you want to do it, and that puts all of your students in different groups and allows them to work just like you would do group work in a regular classroom as well. A couple other useful tools that you're going to want to know about. If you go up to the file menu and you go to save, you can save the chat. So if you want to remember, if students were answering specific questions for points, you can save the chat. If you save participants lists, if you want to take attendance or keep track of who was at your Class Connect and who wasn't at your Class Connect, you can save the participants list. If you do any sort of polling or quiz of some sort, you can save those quiz. And then, for example, if students do work on the whiteboard that you want to save for later, you can save the whiteboards as well. Let me think here, just kind of going through here. Application sharing, audio, breakout rooms, chat. Graphing calculator, which means you can actually have a graphing calculator inside. In-session invite, which you can invite a participant who's not a student. So if you wanted to invite another teacher or an admin, you can invite new participants in there. Interaction, have all students raise their hands upon entering or lower all hands. You can step away, or you can show your emoticons. Moderators allow participants to enter the session. So if, for example, after a certain time you don't want any more students showing up, you can unselect that so that no more students can enter. Polling, you change the polling type, respond to the poll, publish responses to whiteboard, lock responses. Profile, show profiles of everyone, which means that if your students have uploaded like a picture for their profile, it will show up over here next to their name. And a lot of kids do really love that, so that's fun. Recorder, if you forget that the recording button's up at the top, you can record manually from here as well, or if you are doing something like this and you don't like what you've said, you can erase the recording. Session plan and telephony I honestly don't use, so I don't know exactly how they work. You got the timer. Video, which sets the camera settings, if you were to allow your students to use the webcam, you can make the video follow whoever's speaking. And then you've got all the whiteboard things as well. Use Explorer mode, align objects. If you create breakout rooms, let's just create some just for fun here. You'll see they show up over here, and say I wanted to have something. Let's see, that's why I don't use that ever. Say I wanted to have this in all of the breakout rooms. If you right click and you go down to current page, you have the option to copy page to breakout rooms, and then select which rooms it goes to, press copy, and then when you enter that room, now I'm in room 1, you can see because my name's under room 1, and you'll see that the whiteboard's still there. So This is just a really quick basic. There's a lot more that goes to Blackboard, but that's a rundown for you. Thanks.